All right, welcome to today's video. This is Red Bandy Outdoors. I'm Scott, fish biologist turned YouTuber, living the dream out here on the Oregon Cascade River systems, being the star of my own fishing show on TV. Today we're going to talk about bobbers in a little bit more in depth. One of my last videos, I talked about fishing flies under a bobber if you don't want to wade, staying out of the rubbly stream, banging your knees on rocks and sticks and logs you can't even see. Well, you know what? We're out here steelheading today, and steelheaders, they've got the bobber game, they've got it locked down tight. And so if you do steelheading, you understand bobbers. So we're going to talk a little bit about the steelheading bobber systems and how that translates over to what we use for trout and kind of the finesse and ultra finesse flies under the bobber, all that kind of stuff, right? So you see me using that medium size, tough bubble from Double X Tackle. It's orange, there's a clear one, there's a chartreuse one. You see me using that one. I've gotten a few questions why I choose that bobber. So let me go through it. But basically the simple reason is it's the most versatile bobber to use for the stuff that I do on trout streams throughout the West and streams in general, fishing for trout, panfish, smallmouth bass, whatever. If you want to deliver some flies, some light tackle, some small jigs, nymphs, things like that, that bobber's great. If you want to deliver some dry flies, we'll show you that too. I have some videos on my channel, but that's the basic reason. But let me go over some specifics with bobbers and what makes them so good to use and some things that you should be thinking about, because when we use that orange bobber, we're going to take away some of those benefits and kind of lean into a few of the other benefits. So steelheaders, you'll see a lot of steelheaders using bobbers like this, right? Now this is a slip bobber. It slides up the line and hits my bobber stop. I have a bead right here that lets it hit that bobber stop, and I can adjust the depth to whatever I want by moving these up or down my line, right? Now that's pretty awesome. I'm fishing on a 15-pound fluorocarbon bumper right here, down to another bead and then a weight, an inline swivel weight. This one's 1/8 with a 1/8 ounce jig. You've seen me tie this one right here. But this bobber slides, and it's nice and long, and it has some weight on the bottom. This is a weighted bobber. Inside this foam, there's weight, and what that does is make the bobber stand up straight. And so when the bobber is leaning downstream, that means your jig is hitting the bottom and the bobber's being pushed faster than the jig is on the top. You might see it dancing or whatever, bobber dancing up and down, but basically the jig's hitting the bottom and being drugged, and the bobber's being pushed too much on the top. And conversely, if the bobber's leaning the other way, back upstream, that means you're either pulling on the bobber and not allowing it to float, or there's some current on top that's sucking it back, and eventually, basically what happens is the jig kicks up and it's out of the zone. So you want to see these bobbers go straight up and down, and then when it's laying completely on the side, like you'll see out here in this river we're fishing, which is real ledgy, it's sitting on the bottom. It's literally sitting on the bottom, and the weight cannot pull the line through, so this slides all the way up to hit the stopper, right? Does everyone understand that? This thing needs to be free floating for it to work. If it hits anything along the way down, the bobber is going to look weird. If it gets tangled, the bobber is going to look weird. And so over the years, steelheaders have really adapted those bobbers, those ideas, and those techniques to be used with all kinds of different setups, worms, jigs. And so there's other bobbers out there that you can use that have a post, like I'm holding in my hand, and have the weights right here. This is one of the Addicted Fishing ones. You basically run your line down through this rubber piece here, down along the side, or through the float if it has a hole, and down through this rubber piece on the bottom. You can see the weights there. That helps keep the float straight up and down. And same thing, if that's leaning forward, downstream, that means your jig is being drugged. If it's leaning back, meaning pointing upstream, that means your jig is being swung out from bottom. Both mean you're not fishing very good. When you're going to get strikes, it's just going to be like this, bloop, bloop, and go under, and there you go, right? So there's all kinds of floats like that And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about with the orange bobber. We take that post away, right? We no longer have that post. And so we really can't see that going on with the orange bobber. There's lots of ones that have a post in it. This one's another nice one here because it has a hole. You can put the line right down it. Again, it has the elastics on top, the elastics on bottom, and the weight. So it has all those same things. The bobber can go like that. Well, with the round tough bubble, you're not going to see that. We don't really need to see that with the round tough bubble because we're going to kind of change it to like an indicator. And it's just going to bounce through all those pockets and all those rocks that we're fishing, those boulder fields. Now, if you're going to be fishing slower water, you're going to be fishing water that's very laminar, the flow's all the same in depth, and you can really get the bobber to stay up and down, then switch to one of these, put the same flies underneath it, put some weight under it. You know, I don't have you fishing something like this under the yellow bobber. That's a little too heavy. What I have you adding is split shot, right? Carry some split shot, carry some BB, which these are BBs, the smaller ones, but have the B, the bigger one. And that will be able to put that right above your swivel or right below the swivel, wherever you feel confident. Then down to your fly, your jig fly that I've showed you, and I'll show you again and again. Today I'm fishing a worm here for steelhead. But I want my bobber to be fishing straight up and down so I know that I'm covering every one of these seams where my bait is basically a foot off the bottom. Now you won't be able to do that with these bobbers and all that pocket water you see me fishing because for the trout, because the bobber's just going to be rocking back and forth. So that allows us to really just kind of flick it and more use it like a strike indicator and keep it real simple. Now the other versatile piece with that bobber that you can't do with these is you can put water in that bobber. You can make it a whole lot heavier, so that takes away the weight. You don't need that anymore. You can add the weight with the water, cast it a little further. The other thing with that bobber, and we're going to get that into that really more in the summertime, is you can fish dry flies with that. That's an air-filled plastic float. Take the water out, right? I have a great instructional video on how I rig that up. Again, I'll go over that a couple times this summer. But I'm fishing big stone flies, big grasshoppers, and other big dry flies on that bobber. So when you ask me why I use that bobber, it's the most versatile bobber I can stick in my pocket and do about 3 different things with. Can fish the streamer jigs underneath it, just like I'm fishing today, a big heavy weighted jig. I can fish the nymphs underneath it of various sizes, depending on how much weight I put up by the swivel, and then I can fish dry flies. So the last thing I wanted to show you today, because we create our own tackle here at Red Bandy Outdoors, is my buddy was given this bobber the other day by someone on the river. And this explains a whole different technique. This is a wine cork that this person has crafted into a bobber, painted, and made their own. Now this, the first time I looked at it, I was like, oh, this needs some weight in the bottom, right? And that's because I fish my bobbers straight up and down. And so with this guy, he doesn't fish his bobbers straight up and down. He wants them to lay like this. Why does he want them to lay like this? And this comes back to the same reason that the orange float that I use is when that bobber's laying like this, it gets pushed by the current. So you can fish this in slower current, faster current, medium current, whatever you want, but it gets pushed downstream, and that drags your stuff with it. And that's called bobber dogging. That's a different technique. Steelheaders love it. They put the weight right on the bottom, drag 2 egg patterns behind it, and let this bobber get pushed. So it's nice and flat like this in the water, and when it stands up, he knows something's going on. It's kind of the opposite of what I just told you. Innovative tackle. Great topic today on Red Bandy Outdoors. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.